Hey, everybody. Welcome to Love and Reload, the voice of the relocation industry. I am your host, Ben Cross. I am blessed and honored to be here with my friend, Robert Maisel, author of Transform Through Travel, Connecting Across Cultures. Rob, how's it going today?
Good, my friend Ben. I am also honored and blessed to be here with you today. All is
Right?
well. It's sunny out here in New York City.
Where are you at right now? Where in the world are you, buddy?
I'm in Manhattan and I'm slightly sunburned, but not to
Ooh.
the point where anyone should be concerned.
Yeah. I don't see it. You look
Hold
good
on.
though, man. You look good. You got a little what? Yeah, I don't see
You
it,
can't
man.
even see it. It might be an
No.
imaginary thing.
Yeah, I think what did you like walk to the subway and you got
Yeah,
sunburned? Get out of here, man.
basically.
How's Manhattan? What's the vibe? Hey, today we're going to talk about transforming through travel. We're going to talk about culture. We're going to talk about how to have amazing travel experiences. Rob's going to maybe even coach me on my own upcoming trip, which is going to be wild because I have a ton of questions for him. So we want to take your questions about travel as well. And we're going to talk about Rob's book because Rob came on about a year ago and writing a book was one of his goals. And in the past year, he's done that goal. And that's and Rob, I give you so much respect because that's a goal of mine as well. So I might have some questions for you about that too.
Thank you, brother.
Sound good?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Happy to dive into all that.
So tell me first and foremost, though, what's the vibe like in the city right now?
All right. So good. Things are like opening up. It's starting to feel kind of back to normal again. It's feeling good. I believe all remaining restrictions, or if not the majority of them, have been lifted. People are outside in parks. Don't seem to be limits on gatherings. People are hanging out in restaurants and bars. It feels good.
Is masks still required in restaurants and bars, or what's the deal there?
Yeah, so it seems to vary, but a lot of folks are asking about the vaccine, and if you've got it, you can go in. And seems like some places are more stringent, but I think the overall thing I've been seeing is most people are still wearing masks inside. Outdoors, it's kind of But what's the vibe like in Dallas? How's the city doing, and what's going on with the restrictions and all that there?
Man, if I was in Dallas much, I'd know, man. But I haven't even been in Dallas much, to be honest with you. That's why I need some travel advice. I keep getting stuck in these airports. But I'll tell you what, I was in Orlando, and Florida is popping right now. I'll tell you, the tourism industry itself has not caught up to the tourism demand. Hotels were not staffed properly, bars were not staffed properly, restaurants were not staffed properly. There was supply chain shortages on things, but the people wanted to be out. The people were having fun. There was revelry in the air. There was kids going to Disney World again. It was jams. Laura checking in. What's up, Laura? I haven't talked to you in a while. Hi, guys. So happy to see
Laura.
you guys. Great vibe in NYC. Check out Laura's Instagram page too. She does some really cool things with New York City real estate. Shout out to her. Lizzie Beats in the house. Hi, Ben and Robert. Beats from Shy City.
Right.
What up, Lizzie? We're having so much fun here. Rob Zeitz checking in from Beantown. That's cool.
Hey, Rob.
Janet Turner.
Hey,
you're home.
A special shout. I was just about to shout you out, Janet Turner. I saw you and Ben on Love and Relo live together. Dope.
Yeah. Hugs to Janet. Much love. It was so cool. Janet, I even got my tinctures over here. My tinctures made the trip. I took your oregano eyedropper yesterday, and I took a shot of that. Whatever cider craziness you made me. And I tell you what, Janet, I did not wake up hungover. So thank you so much for that. Let's see. Jana, hello from Rio, Brazil. Robert Brizuela, hey, from Nashville. Robert, we got a lot of Robs.
We got a lot of Robs in today's show.
Hola, Roberto's. Rob, what's the vibe like in that? Robert Brizuela, what's the vibe like in Nashville? That is a fun town.
That's a fun town.
Yeah, like the tan, Rob. The Brazilians, I think they're clowning the tan a little bit. Yeah. Tracy, Tracy, that's Tracy. Stacy, Stacy's looking at me like, you crazy? Hi, Ben and Robert. I'm looking forward to the show. I feel like I have jet lag. Is there a minimum amount of Is there a minimum amount of time zones you have to cross in order to get jet lag, Rob, in your professional experience?
I think everyone's different. I sometimes will feel it if it's if it's more than a couple hours. I'm generally not too affected if it's like 2 to 3 hours. More than that, like international trips, my body will usually be finding its own ways to ask me what the F I'm doing with it.
Seriously. Your body rejects the plane.
Yeah.
Hey, if you have questions about travel, throw them in the comments here. Let us know. Farrell's ready to start traveling again. Alan King, good to see you from Dusseldorf. That's a doozy. Janet Turner, last NYC question, I think. I promise. I don't know.
Oh,
Janet
good.
says,
Throw 'em
what are
my
the
way. It's all
subways
fun.
like?
So
What are
the subways,
like?
great question, Janet. The subways right now are cleaner than they've ever been potentially in history. Unbelievable. Like there's been major efforts in just keeping them clean, disinfecting them on a nightly basis, I believe. And what's really interesting is when the pandemic hit, ridership, as you might imagine, went way down. And now I think folks are more comfortable with the rollout of the vaccine. People are a lot more comfortable with riding the subways. So we've definitely seen ridership go up, and subways are definitely operating again, and people are on them, and people are living life.
Does it feel like the rush hour is back yet or not quite back yet?
Yeah, that's a good one. I haven't personally experienced being on the subway during rush hour, but I'll tell you at close to rush hour, a fair amount of people still not, not the full capacity as before COVID. I think still that has to do with certain people not being comfortable with, or maybe just change their lifestyle, don't want to do that anymore. And we got to remember that a lot of people are coming back into the city, but they're still, it's not to the capacity as it was. So not everybody is coming back, and people are still kind of petering back in. So there's less people in New York City than before.
Yeah, for sure. Let's see here. Francine's got a question. Can we talk more about Italy? Definitely need to start planning. Yeah. All right, Rob, I'm going to put you on the spot.
Boom.
Rob is a travel coach. Rob's even going to help me coach me on my first European trip. And
right.
Italy is not on my docket, but Italy is on the docket for next year for my 40th birthday. So, Rob, help me and Francine on our trips to Italy, not together. What advice do you have for us?
Sure. So through my experience in Italy, man, there's just so much good stuff out there. As you might imagine, a lot of people, I think, go to Italy for the food, right? So there's the pizza, the pasta, the Italian food. And actually, it's in the book. What I found was so amazing was the simplicity of the Italian food there. So I got a pasta. There is pasta and smashed tomato on it. And I looked up and I thought to myself, that's it? And that was it. And that was also one of the best meals I ever had in my life. Wow. And what's so go ahead, Ben.
Was there like a brown butter sauce or something like that'd be some sort of a sauce of some sort, no?
No, this was straight up smashed tomatoes. That was it. That was the sauce. And so I think we get so used to in the States of having like tomato sauce, like, and preservatives and things. So we sometimes forget like the natural source. It doesn't have to be all that. It could just be what it is, just the pure tomatoes. So I think for both of you, if you're excited about food, if you're as excited about food as I was, Napoli or Naples is definitely a spot you want to think about. On 2019's world trip, I specifically went back to do that in Pisa. And there's so much, like the Leaning Tower of Pisa. Some people will consider it just a tourist attraction. Some will skip, some will go. I found a lot of value in it. I thought just the architecture of it was super cool. And I really liked Florence and a place called Cinque Terre, which is 5 different small towns, and you can hike or take trains through them. And it's just such a cool experience along the coast. It builds so many great memories. That was a lot, guys.
Yeah, Cinque Terre is definitely on my list. I mean, it's one of the most beautiful postcard, type of places that you could ever see. I definitely want to do that. I hear Bologna is amazing for food as well. And just like getting a bottle of wine, getting a loaf of bread, and just various salumi and different cured meats and things like that. And just kind of having small plates where you just, polish off a bottle of wine. Sounds amazing. Honestly, sounds so amazing. Hey, ask your travel questions here. I want to know where are you most looking forward to going, and what can we help you with? Elizabeth Martin, DJ Lizzie Beats. Sad fact, I have never been out of the country. Liz, what are you doing? I say that. I haven't been many places myself, but I'm going to change that. Liz, do you have plans to change that in 2021 or 2022? Rob, if you could give Liz let's say 3 places she should go, never having been out of the country before, where would you tell her to go?
That's a great question.
I'm just putting you on the spot here.
Yeah,
we didn't prep this here.
Exactly. I mean, generally, I would ask a couple more questions to find out what Liz, like what you're interested in and so forth. But if I had to just pick 3 just off the top of my head, Canada. Let's think.
Canada makes the top 3. Canada.
Yep. And
really? Why Canada?
I'll explain my rationale right after.
Please explain.
Well, actually, just explain right into this because a lot of times people want to do something super exotic, super crazy, and there's nothing wrong with that, right? But I feel like it's important for people to ease into travel. So look, there's certain parts of Canada that are very culturally different. Like Montreal is a whole, they're French speaking as well, and it's a very different culture, but there are a lot of portions of Canada that may be similar, or they speak the same language.
So Janet wants to know where in Canada. Give me 3 places in Canada maybe that you would recommend.
Okay. Montreal, as much as it is exotic, I do love it because of the jazz and the amazing just atmosphere. But Toronto is going to be an interesting city that people could visit. That's going to feel, I think, more still very international. So from anyone coming from the States, from an international city like New York, but English speaking and that kind of vibe. And
all right, so Toronto's 1. Is Montreal in your top 3 or no?
Yeah, I do love Montreal. But the reason I recommend Canada per se is because I'm looking for places that may be least likely to jolt someone, because
like if it's more accessible, right?
With the similar language and similar culture. So I'd almost lean toward a domestic trips and like a Toronto as you ease yourself in internationally. And so, for example, like the UK, also you're going to have the same language. Though I do find culturally there are certain similarities, but we're quite distinct. There's a lot of cultural differences between the US and the UK as well. So it's really that challenge of pushing your limits, but not pushing it too far that you don't discourage yourself. So that what you don't want to do is make your first international trip so congested with things to do, and or to a place that is so drastically different that it just rocks your world in a bad way. Do you know what I mean? You want to ease into it.
Yes, I don't want my world rocked in a bad way. What I do want is a second and third option. So is Montreal in the top 3? We got Toronto for sure, which is on Alan King's list as well. And Robert also says, yes, ours too, that we heard they had great food festivals. Awesome. Okay, so Toronto's number 1. What's number 2 and what's number 3?
I'd say Montreal, definitely.
Love Montreal. I used to spend so much time in Montreal when I was in college at Albany. Go Danes.
Okay, so me too. Let's go on this a little further. Go Danes.
Yes. Right up 87, right? Mm-hmm. So Rob
we did
and
that
I,
too.
some people forget this, that Rob and I actually went to the same college together. He went much later than I did. Not too much later, like 4 years later, like similar-ish era. Yeah.
Right.
And yeah, you could scoot up right up 87 and about 2.5 hours, probably you're there in Montreal. And back then, the Canadian dollar was, like 2 to 1 or something like that, and so you're getting a toonie for a loony, and you could have a good old time. And it was 18 to drink, it was 18 to go to casinos and do everything else, and you'd have a good time, So that was my first exposure to Canada, was going to Montreal. And you're right, French Canada, I mean, it kind of did blow my mind. The money's different, which also, by the way, for me, was something I did not expect to be kind of like, I don't know, jolted by or whatever. Like dollar coins and $2 coins, for some reason, was hard for me to wrap my mind around. The money doesn't feel real when you're in another country for some reason too, which is especially if they have a favorable conversion rate. And then the fact that the default language was French, it truly felt like you're in another country, obviously, but another continent, like a far, far away place. And it was a little bit of a challenge. I mean, it was kind of fun, but like driving there was kind of hard because you're like, Nord and Sud and Est and, and like, it's just hard to get around kind of. And this is before you could just put it on your phone too. So we had a lot of fun in Montreal. So that's number 2. That's awesome. Now, what's number 3? And this is where you get into a problem. Because number 3 is a tough one.
Yeah. So, what's funny is what I'll say, and it's a common tourist destination, but it's almost the best initial one. Like, I almost put this at number 1 is Niagara Falls. And
Niagara Falls, Canada?
And
that's like too accessible. You could walk there.
And the reason is, right, it's just over the border. It's like you're just transitioning, like you're literally transitioning from one country to another and one culture to another. And then you can explore further. You know what I mean? So I think that's for people. And this is for people. Remember, this is our list for people who have never left the country.
Niagara Falls is like a clean suburb of Buffalo, though. So like, I don't know. That's not enough of like, that's not different enough. Like how I said, Montreal is like another place, like for real. Like, Niagara. Here's where I'm getting caught up. I loved Vancouver.
Yeah.
I loved Vancouver. And then, but you know what? You know who wins the prize today? Valerie McKenzie. Banff.
Yes.
That's what I was wondering, if you were going to go to Banff or not. If you're going to say Banff. Have you been to Banff? I haven't been.
I haven't been yet, but I've heard such spectacular things about the nature and the trails out there. It's definitely on my list.
Where's Ken Nickel Lane? We got to tag Ken Nickel Lane. I think he lives in Banff or somewhere close by. Let's see here. All right. So your top 3, your third one was Niagara Falls, man.
Remember, man, we going easy with the transition.
He's sticking with it. You know what?
People who never left the country, man.
That's probably go easy. Smart. That's probably smart. So that's great. Let's see here. We got some other folks chiming in here. Yep. Janice saying, what about the West Coast of Canada? Yep, for sure. This is great. So you were going to give me 3 countries. So we're still on Liz here and kind of myself, right? So you gave us 1 country to visit was Canada, 2 more countries we should visit if we haven't been outside of the US and let's say the US.
Yeah. So we talked about the UK. I'd probably put the UK on the list, though. Well, as we'll talk about a little bit later in the broadcast, perhaps the restrictions right now. We'll get into that, but that's
Janice says, I think the UK is a good first trip, except don't drive. Don't expect late night in bars nor cold beer. No late nights in bars? They don't do that? What's that about? That's a thing?
I guess there's a stricter curfew, maybe.
Janet,
I think I remember that.
You're scaring me, Janet.
I remember that. Yeah, people weren't staying out as late.
Very odd. Very odd. And then what would be a third country you might recommend?
Yeah, I'm thinking on this third one now.
A couple of people are offering. Rob says, another Rob, very confusing. Zeitz, we're going to call him Zeitz. Zeitz said Dublin might be a good European trip. That's similar enough to the U.S. Friendly people. Yeah,
I would agree with that. I think Ireland could be a great choice. For sure. And also I was thinking about Australia as well. It's quite a trip from the US if you're coming from here. Actually, it's not really close to anywhere. If I'm being honest, I decided to go when I lived in Tokyo because it was the closest thing. I think I found direct flights from Tokyo to Melbourne. But otherwise, I was like, I'm here now, so I'm just going to go, because otherwise it's going to be 2 or 3 flights, and it's hard to get to.
That's so funny.
So I'd probably go. I'd agree with the Ireland recommendation, depending where people are.
That's great. That's great. Let's see here. Janet saying, yeah, in the UK, bars closed by 11, and at the latest, Alan King confirms that.
Wow.
Vinny Valverde says Janet is a party animal.
Janet's our nightlife resource.
She is. Yep, this is great. Fantastic. Alan clarifies nightclubs are open until around 2 or 3. So it's just the pubs that close early, not the nightclubs. Yeah, don't let Janet fool you like she's just all about the herbal tea. Okay. Janet she gets down. All right. Let's see. Elizabeth Martin says, I told my mom I was going to Germany, and she said, not as long as she's alive. Total sheltered south side of Chicago mom. All my friends went to Cancun for senior trip, not me. Well, first of all, Liz, Cancun on a senior trip is probably a bit much. Okay. Probably a bit much. But my mom also said, like, I told her, I'm going to go to Singapore. I'm going to do this. She looked at me like I was absolutely crazy. Rob, we kind of grew up around the same time. How did you convince? Tell us about your travel story. We're going to get into my situation coming up, but tell us about your travel story and how you got the bug early on, and how did you convince your parents or whoever was taking care of you at the time to let you go do all this crazy stuff?
It's a great question, Ben. And what's funny is when I look back, I look at my first couple travel experiences, and they were Canada, in fact, and Mexico, due to, I think, just like the not convenience, but like the location. It's close to the U.S., closer than other countries. Yeah,
there's a border. And
I knew after having those experiences, I knew there was something special and different about it. Just being able to interact with new people and just being curious and learning a lot about different cultures, different ways of life in Mexico, another language. And I started to really become interested. And, I started talking with a friend of mine about the idea of going on a Europe trip. And I think that the sort of crucial event that happened was we had been talking about going one summer, and I sort of set everything up. I was planning for it. And then he wasn't able to go, and I was really disappointed. I was like, oh man, like, I guess I'm not going to go. And then I was like, oh yeah, why not? Why not? And I asked myself that question, and I didn't have a good answer as to why not. The only answer I could give myself was because he wasn't going, and that wasn't a good enough answer for me.
Right.
So I went by myself, and that.
What was that like? What do you think that was like, going by yourself compared to like going with a friend?
Scary as beep. I just blurted that out for you, so no one in the production has to do it.
Yeah, it saved me some money. I appreciate that.
I got you.
I mean, like, and how old were you at the time?
Ooh, let's see. So this was summer between the 2 years of my MBA at Albany. So I would have been 22, I believe. 22.
What did your folks have anything to say about it?
Oh yeah, lots.
Oh yeah, lots.
Nothing good. You know what? It's just a lot of it was just fear and doubt, and I think a lot of that worry comes along with, from what I understand. I'm not personally a parent, but from what I understand from parenting, from having been parented by my own parents and seeing how friends' parents react, and maybe you can attest to this too, Ben, and others listening. Look, parents gave birth to a child. They're concerned. They want to make sure that their child is okay. This is a totally normal thing. But I think oftentimes it's like this line where like concern turns to like intense worry and fear. And then it starts to be like, no, don't go. And then the demands start coming. It's hard because I think a lot of us face, and the book talks about this too, for sure. Because I went through this where our friends and our family oftentimes like can end up discouraging or can end up putting doubts and thoughts in our mind just because they're concerned about us. Yet they may not be talking from a place of experience. They may not have ever been there. They may only know what they know from their experiences, which may be just the media or reading certain, publications. And we have to ask ourselves, what are those sources focusing on? Is that the truth? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, no, totally. And I think there's a lot of fear around travel for sure. And that's one of the things I'm trying to get over with myself here this year is I've decided, like, okay, now that I am self-employed and now I have international clients, I was like, it is time to do it, right?
And
to
Ben,
just rip the Band-Aid off and hop into it.
Take a timeout right there, and let's give Ben kudos. I commend you. Everyone listening and watching right now, give Ben a big shout out. This is a big thing that he's about to do. It's not easy, so I commend you, brother. I respect you for doing that.
Yeah, well, thank you. And, it's so funny because I get on here and I talk to people all over the world about moving people all over the world. And here I am. I haven't even been all over the world, right? So, I mean, to some degree, I feel like it's almost like a prerequisite for even being able to do this kind of show, So anyway, yeah, so I'm going to do it. And we're going to go here and shout out to some of the people in the comments here. Vinny's throwing some amazing comments in here. He's saying Brazil's the best country. Vinny, let me know.
Brazil's awesome.
Top 3 places for Americans to go in Brazil. Leave it in there. I appreciate you. Also, Alan, I see you shouting out Germany over there. Put top 3 places to go to in Germany. Let me know. I want to know about that because I've been told Germany's amazing and I should make a stop in there when I go to Europe. So I don't know if I'm going to have time or not. I want to get Rob's opinion on how much is too much. Where should I go? What shouldn't I do this time around? Bridget Ritchie says, I've traveled internationally fairly extensively. First trip was Paris. It was challenging as my first trip to get around, order food, etc. I'd say do the UK, Spain, Barcelona, not Madrid. Interesting. Not some of the other ones like Valencia or Ibiza. And Ireland, Dublin, or Switzerland, Zurich. Switzerland, Zurich, not Geneva. I'd love to know because Switzerland is on the list for August, Bridget. All easy enough to get around. Awesome, Bridget. Let's see here. Alan says, if you're coming to Germany, let me know. Alan, where in Germany are you? Vinny, Ben, let's go to Brazil. Vin, dude. Okay, Vinny, let me tell you a quick story. Sorry, Rob. Quick story.
Go for it.
I went to Mardi Gras when I was 16 in New Orleans. Got back from that. Talk about transforming your life. Got back from that, and me and my cousin looked at each other and said, what's next? Carnival. Carnival's next. I'm 16 years old. I get back from and I think I'm going to Rio when I'm 17 for Carnival. My cousin would have been 19 at the time. We had apparently somebody's uncle lived there or something, and we were gonna stay with them, and yeah, didn't happen. Did not happen. So can we get into my trip and talk a little bit about it? Because I got a lot of questions to ask.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. So Rob, as my de facto travel coach here, okay, I am looking to transform my life and my business through travel.
Right.
I am looking to connect with my clients, my friends, my community here, and people I don't know yet, across cultures, right? Which is kind of the title of your book. But I've never done it before. And to your point, my perceptions are really shaped by, the media, the movies, whatever, pop culture, things I've heard. And I need to know what I should do and what I shouldn't do. So I'm going to go over to Europe in August. First thing I got to ask is, what travel restrictions am I looking at as of August? What do we know? And what do we think might happen?
Sure. So my understanding, Ben, is that you were initially thinking about the UK and Switzerland, right? For the trip?
Yeah. So I'm looking at London, specifically London for business. And then I'm looking at Switzerland, Zurich and Geneva for Switzerland for business. and
Okay.
I'll have like 2 weeks total, with presumably some leisure time baked in there.
Okay. So yeah, now what I'll say before we even get into this is the information that I'm going to give you now is the information. This is the research I've done and compiled, and it's based on, just different credible sources, but it's also it's important to remember that it's going to depend on where you're coming from. More so with visa rules in generally depend on a person's citizenship, nationality, or the passport they hold. But when we're talking about COVID-related restrictions, they're going to pertain more to where we physically have been, just due to the nature of the situation and the virus. So, for example, instead of if I'm a U.S. citizen, for visa requirements, it's more important my citizenship. But if I'm a U.S. citizen who's been living in Japan, countries are more concerned with me being in Japan right now for COVID restrictions, which makes sense because that's where I'm coming from. Okay, so what we know right now, coming from you coming from the U.S. is for the two different countries, right? For Switzerland, my understanding at the moment is there's basically two lists. There's one list that is important to be looking at in terms of, are people going to be allowed to enter, or the restrictions list. US is not on that list, which means that if you've been vaccinated within the last 6 months and you haven't been to any of these countries in the at-risk list, which the US, like we said, is not on that list right now, to my understanding, you're okay to go. You'd need a negative COVID test within 3 days of departure, and that should be it.
With no quarantine.
No quarantine is the understanding I have right now. Now, when we're looking at the UK, different story, because the UK started implementing what's called a traffic light system. Basically, they have it at red, amber, or yellow, and green, right? My understanding with this is red, you're not going. Green, you're good. Amber or yellow, you're kind of in this middle zone.
Which is like where most of the countries are probably classified, right? In that amber zone.
And that's where the US is right now. So Boris Johnson, just a day or so ago, announced, you and I have been talking about, the possibility of those restrictions being lifted. But the most recent announcement just a few days ago from Boris Johnson was they're going to delay the lifting of those restrictions for another month because there's concern over the new variant over there. So what that means is that the US people coming from the US right now to the UK still have the following concerns: generally a negative COVID test within 3 days of your departure, and a strict 10-day quarantine once you arrive to the UK, with a potential way to shorten it to 5 days. But you also need 2 negative COVID tests on day 2 and day 8 of being there. So it's a bit tricky right now. We're going to have to see come a month's time what happens. But as of now, those restrictions are still in place, which poses a significant challenge to anyone traveling there right now.
Because I had heard that June 21st, they were going to open things up. And then I heard maybe they pushed that out to July.
Correct. So that was the plan. Exactly like you said, to the 21st was the target opening. We're going to lift all these restrictions. But just a day or so ago, Boris Johnson had now extended that. Let's see how it looks in a month. So on June 21st, my understanding is that it is not lifted. Let's see how it looks in another month.
Yeah. Does anybody watching right now, we've got a bunch of people overseas and everything, or with experience, does anybody that's watching right now have any insight into the EU, Switzerland specifically, or the UK, England specifically, and what I'm going to need to do as far as, or what they think's going to happen, I should say, what's going to happen in July? I mean, when July, I don't know what it is, like July 16th. So when middle of July, whatever that new deadline is for the UK, when that rolls around, there's Alan. Yes, it's pushed back to July. Yeah. So Alan and Rob, I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. When that rule rolls around, am I going to have to quarantine in July, or does that mean like as of July, if I've been vaccinated, that I won't have to quarantine?
So I think it's gonna depend on what the UK government comes out and says. I believe, and Alan, please share your thoughts and perspective as well. I believe that the plan is to lift all restrictions within a month. I think Boris Johnson believes the country just needs another month to sort of get the second vaccines, like to get everybody both doses and get a majority of the population vaccinated in order to control that the worrying new variant. And they believe that within that month they'll be able to do it. So I think the goal is in July to lift restrictions, meaning no quarantine. But of course, I can't confirm that. We have to see what the UK government ultimately ends up saying and deciding a month down the road.
Yeah, because that quarantine is a real deal breaker if you're going over for to a country for a week, right, and then having a 5 to 10 day quarantine. Alan saying yes, Boris is under massive pressure to get the country open again. Yeah, and the thing is too, I'm hearing a lot of reports about variants, but I'm also hearing that the COVID vaccines protect against all variants so far. So we're hearing a lot to do about variants, but if we just get vaccinated, we should be okay. And I hope that everybody hears that. And I hope that everybody goes out and gets vaccinated, not only for themselves, but for everyone else and for the economy of our country, because they're looking at the net vaccination rates for these countries when they're talking about things like herd immunity and is the whole country safe? We're at 60% or 70%, how to get that number up to 70 or somewhere people feel safe. So really going out and getting vaccinated is huge, and getting your kids vaccinated as there are more and more vaccines available and able to do so is really big. So I just urge everybody to go do that. So
agreed.
Let's assume that I'm good to go by August.
Okay.
What is your best recommendation for how to travel to, what type of a plan should I put in place, you think? What would you coach me to do?
Sure. So the first thing I would ask you, we chat about it, is what are you looking to get out of the trip, right? What are the goals behind your trip?
Yeah, good question. Right? So I want to build relationships with my clients in London and in Switzerland, and I want to have a transformational experience, right? I want to see the world differently.
Right. So how do you see yourself spending time with your clients? And what I mean by that is it just in a business setting, or do you see yourself spending time like outside of the business meetings as well and doing certain activities with them?
I'd like to probably go off for a drink or go off for a meal, something like that, outside.
Okay. So, when you're looking at building these relationships, it's what I think is one of the most important things to do is really just, and you're great at this, Ben, because you host the shows, you talk to people all over the world, and you have exposure to speaking to these people, right? But now you understand that going out and physically getting in a place and being there and interacting in person is going to be different. But it's really two things. When we're thinking about the experiences you want to have, I think it's important to think about what revs you up, what gets you going, what really motivates you, right? So when I think about like what things you enjoy, because when we think about putting an itinerary together, we want to build in things that are going to be transformational for you. We want to do it in a way of things you enjoy. So for example, if you love history, we want to build in probably something related to historical. If you're a museums guy, we want to tie in how learning about different aspects of the culture or society in museums can impact you, right? So I think another important question to think about is sort of, moving forward, what kind, and this can be, everything from the arts to nature, literature, it can be culinary, it can be, related to someone's faith, the experiences that people want to have. How can we find ways to think about what kind of experiences people can have in those categories that we know impact them, and then use those as a transformational vehicle to spur growth?
Yeah, so I would say like food, art, music, conversation with people. Like, I don't know if that's like what to call that, but like I really dig that kind of stuff, like those kind of interactions and conversations. Obviously, I do that all the time. So I really love those types of experiences. So, I mean, that's probably where I'd want to focus, I would guess.
Food, art, and conversations.
Sure. I dig it.
So then what we would do is looking at those categories, right? So food, art, conversations. We'd want to dig a little bit deeper in there. You might do a little research, and I would as well, to look further into what kind of food experiences, what kind of art, what kind of transformational conversations do we want to have? So let's talk about conversations, for example, because I think the exchange of information is always powerful, especially when it comes across cultures, and especially when it happens in person, right? So, that's an important question for us to ask ourselves. What kind of conversations do you feel with your clients could be transformational?
I mean, anything that builds trust and understanding, I feel like, yeah. And then also, if I have a couple of days, spare. By the way, shout out to Vinny. Vinny put an amazing link in there that Deloitte has published, which is a COVID digital map. It has travel impacts, social impacts, permits, etc. Check that link out if you are checking out traveling soon. That's awesome. Alan King saying comedy clubs are great places. Is this pronounced Leicester Square?
That definitely threw me. Yeah, you're right, I believe.
Yeah, Leicester. That's a lot of letters for Leicester. I like it. That's cool. Great place to get a drink and food. Yep. Robert says it's a great resource here. Yeah. So let me ask everybody, what city, if I have, let's say I got to do Zurich, I got to do Geneva, I got to do London. So let's say I got 7 days out of 14 that are spoken for. What others should I go outside of those cities, or should I do a deep dive in those cities? Should I go to like other places? Like, should I do a Munich? Should I do a Prague? Should I do a Dublin whiskey trip, or should I just kind of do more of a deep dive into in those cities? What are your thoughts on that?
So, yeah, for me, just keeping in mind, it's always going to depend on the person, the personality, and their experience. Because this is your first sort of big international trip, right? I'm hesitant to advise you to just jam pack your itinerary, because I know, right. I know that if I were in your shoes, I would want to, and that's why I therefore caution it.
That's definitely the tendency. Like, yo, I could do this, I could do that, and then I could hop over here, I could do a half day there, and I could hop on a train, and then I definitely could happen.
Because we got to think about, there's a lot of things that like we tend to overlook when we do that, right? Our initial thought is, bam, I want to put in as much as I can do, and I want to do it all, but a few things. One, we want to take enough time to really soak in each experience. I think a lot of times less is more, especially when we're looking to have transformational conversations. We don't want to feel rushed in our activities, because I think stress really stress goes against a lot of these amazing feelings and these amazing conversations and all these things. We're feeling rushed. I also think that, let's look at what happened, for example, even on, it was Monday, right? In the Orlando airport. Okay, but that's typical.
Epic fail.
No,
epic travel fail. I'm like, how do I get stuck on a plane when I'm trying to have a travel coaching show?
It's perfect.
I'm stuck on an airplane.
No, but you know what, Ben? It's perfect because it hammers home a point. We're talking about something that happened to you domestically. We didn't even get out of the country yet, and now you're starting to see. This is another reason why I don't usually advise jam packing a schedule, because we never know what kind of delays are going to happen. Now, think if you had allotted just this quick amount of time for this one experience, and you had left no free days to explore, for example, and it turns out that instead of having like a 30 or 60 minute delay like you had, you were on the plane for 4 hours.
Yeah.
We just can't calculate those.
No, you're right. Happen. I mean, I jammed my day that Monday, and then boom, look what happened. And I messed up. People are giving some ideas here. Marianne says Istanbul. Vinny says Marianne, Istanbul's unreal. One of the best for sure. Marianne also says yes to Prague. Marianne's just on fire here. She's loving Prague. Rob saying London has so much. Alan says London is great. It's going to be expensive though. So, do I add no other cities to my itinerary besides London, Geneva, and Zurich? or do I try to add one? And
So
if so, which one?
So at the end of the day, well, let me understand this first. We've got about 2 weeks, half business, half kind of open or half pleasure. Is that right? At this point? Okay.
Yeah, sure. I got seven work days, and the rest is going to be up to me.
Yeah. I mean, I'm inclined to say explore those 3 cities, because 3 cities in and of itself, just without any business component, is a fair amount to do within 2 weeks if you really dive in.
Okay.
Ultimately, and this is your choice, right? So I give you my thoughts and opinions, and you ultimately will choose what you want to do. If you want to start, for example, you decide you want to start in Paris and have the weekend there too. Ultimately, anything you decide is okay. It's just that my experience has been really taking the time to dive in deep to learn about these places, and not putting such a stressful sort of time limit on ourselves. To whatever extent our time in each location will allow, really allows us to build the type of itinerary that allows for those transformational experiences to happen.
Yeah. Alan's giving a good tip here too along those lines, right? Get the big bus tour. I think it's valid 24 hours. Get your bearings, see different parts of the city. It'd be interesting to you. I've done it several times. Yeah, interesting.
And to Alan's point, my experience in London too, there's a lot to see there. Like,
right.
And so it kind of depends. Yes, and thank you, Alan. Alan's agreeing here. Right, he's saying similarly. Right, don't rush it; it'll be stressful, and it's your first side. On that side of the pond, right? And it's true. We have this tendency to want to do so much and do everything, but we don't want diminishing returns, right? We're just rushing to check boxes and not getting necessarily anything transformational out of it if we're looking for these transformational experiences.
Shout out to Chris Benson. I'm a packer, but I'm normally exhausted when I'm home and didn't see everything. 3 cities, a lot with the business components. I am also a bit of a packer. I'm a big man. That means I have big clothes. I like to wear a lot of fancy stuff. I pack suits. I do all this kind of stuff. I got outfits. Sometimes I bring hats for no reason, just because I like to wear hats. Those always take up space. Any packing tips for the sartorially inclined? Means people like clothes.
Are you asking me or the audience there, Ben?
I'm asking anybody that can help me out. I mean, is this gonna be a problem with like luggage where it's like, okay, now you're traveling between cities, you don't want to have like a lot of luggage, or if you just focus in 3 cities, you can pack a big old suitcase and it's all good because you're just gonna leave it in the hotel for the most part.
So we'll be curious to see what the audience says. I'll give you my perspective a lot. And then you have to remember just the type of travel that people have done. Yeah, that's a good point, Marianne. Suits in Europe definitely will be hot.
So what do you wear, Marianne? If you're not wearing a suit, I go see a client. What am I wearing? Am I wearing jeans? People even wear jeans in Europe? Is that a thing? Marianne, I'm looking at you. No, but I mean, seriously, as a cultural question here, Marianne says pack light. You can buy if you need anything, but don't want to lug it around a lot.
And Ben, let me build on that point. I agree with Marianne because it's so true. A lot of times we have this worry that we're like, oh, God, I got to bring everything, and we tend to overpack. But we have to remember that everything, it's an obvious statement, but we forget it. Everything we pack is coming with us everywhere we go. So that might not mean anything to you right now, just thinking about, here's my trip. When you start packing that suitcase, when you start lugging around everything that's in that suitcase, or 2 or 3, you'll feel it. And so that's where it starts to get exhausting, especially if you've built in a heavy itinerary. You've built in 4 or 5 cities, you lug in 2 or 3 suitcases around. All of a sudden, there's a lot more going on than you realized. And that's why I agree, pack light. She's right, Marianne? You can get anything that you really need there. Unless it's like your designer suit or your special shoes, you need them, bring them.
Yeah, but like I'm a big guy. I can't just be going off the rack, especially in Europe where everybody's tiny. I can't just be going into like, Harrods and like buying something off the rack. I can't do that here. I'm not gonna be able to do it there. Like that's something I got to think about.
Right.
Alan's over here like suit up. Hey, I'm getting mixed messages over here, Alan. Yeah, you think I should wear a suit? I mean, I'm down. I'll pack one. I can always, women can always accessorize with a scarf. Vinny says lots of scarves. My wife has 50 different scarves. Marianne, you want me to wear light pants and tropical shirts like to a business meeting? Like, can I really get away with that? Like rocking the Tommy Bahama? Can I wear an untucked shirt to a business meeting? I mean, maybe in the US if I really know the people, but I'm kind of concerned culturally. Is that going to be appropriate? Like a major faux pas? I don't want to show up to the office, Rob saying I can wash my clothes. That's a revelation. A
But you
very
can,
light jacket.
yeah, for example, you can go lighter, but you can still dress, in the UK, for example, professionally. You can bring your suit. So I think there's a difference between, pack light and don't bring any business attire. You can certainly, and I would urge you to bring, business attire, like whatever whatever you're comfortable in, right? Smart casual, and or if you want to do a full on suit, it might be a good idea, to actually bring at least one of each of those outfits, maybe two, and you start to see how your suitcase is kind of filling up and how much room you have for other things after you do that.
Yeah, Alan's saying suit up in London.
Right.
I dig it, man. I know. I feel the same way. I mean, that's like Seville Row, right? That's where the tailors are. That's where, it's kind of a more conservative business culture, I would think. Chris Benson was clarifying here. I was referring to packing a lot of places in one trip. I try to pack like my hair product is the reason I check my bags. I normally don't wear most of the stuff. I pack one or two suits and change out shirts and tie. Yeah.
That's so true. Yeah, Christopher, I have found the same thing. Even when I eliminate and reduce before a trip and I pack what I think is light, even then, I usually find that I don't really end up wearing most of it, or I end up wearing like a third, maybe to 2/3 of what I brought. So just, Ben, with that information in mind, just remember, like, that is how it's been for Chris. That's how it's been for me. That may be how it is for you. So you almost could take everything you're thinking of bringing, and as long as you have an array of different styles and types, take 2/3 of what you were going to do.
We'll see. I don't know if I'm going to take fashion advice off the internet, but I definitely like these other tips about roll your clothes in your suitcase. You'll gain extra space. I mean, Marianne, not false. 100%. But am I going to like take a suit and like roll it up? I mean, that sounds like a problem. Anyway, this is really super interesting. And honestly, these are like the practical questions that I have. So I'm really looking forward to working with you and getting a plan together for the trip. Super stoked about it. We spent a lot of time talking about it here and offline. So really excited about it. So it sounds like what I'm taking away here is don't try to do too much. Pack light. If in doubt, leave it out. And just have a good time with that. And then of course, Rob says bring one of those Texas ties, a big Texas belt buckle, and a cowboy hat. Yeah, because that's practical, Rob. Appreciate you, Bridget Ritchie. You'll be so close to Munich or even Milan. I think you should explore at least one more city. 7 days, plenty of cushion to account for delays. Maybe head up to Luxembourg or Amsterdam. I don't jam pack things, but I've had phenomenal experiences in just 2 days in the area. Yeah, for sure. Marianne says any hotel will have an iron. All right, cool. Hey, I do want to do is I want to make sure that I leave time to ask you about your book, dude. You wrote a book. Props to you. That's awesome.
Thank you, my man.
Tell us about the book.
Sure. So it really is pretty much in line with our entire discussion today. And thanks for that, Ben. Yeah, like you said, hopped on a year ago, told you about it. This was a goal of mine, and here I am today at the final stages of the publishing. It's getting ready to be real.
Where can people get this book? They've been watching us talk about travel for so long. I'm sure they want to support you. I do too. Where can we get the book?
Thanks, man. Yeah, so there should be a link either in the comment section or on the screen. There it is. Everyone who's seeing it now, the pre-sale campaign. You can pick up a copy of the book along with some different packages that accompany it, and there are 3 days left. So grab your copy of package today.
Awesome.
Yeah, it's super exciting because it's just it's a way for me. I once this whole pandemic started, I thought to myself, Ben, I've accumulated all this knowledge and experience about travel. And hey, man, there's so much that I've learned that I just want to share it with the world. And so a book seemed to be the perfect way to do it. And as I started planning it, started to dive deeper into like, what would I need to know? How can I help my audience? What do people need to hear? And so it really started to, thank you, Christopher. And it started thinking, all right, people definitely need that core. So a core element of the coaching that we're going to do is the motivation, overcoming doubts, overcoming fears, just because you know what? They're inherent. We all have them. As much as people like to, pretend like they're not there, they are. It's a matter of doing the proper thing with them. How do we handle them? How do we overcome fear? How do we use it to propel us forward instead of letting it hold us back? So I knew that the mentality of travel, overcoming fear, doubts, was something I struggled with a lot in the past. And I knew that we needed to start the book with that, because people aren't going anywhere without that.
Fear is a non-starter, and it affects every decision in our life, especially travel, because you're talking about new places, right?
Exactly.
Fear comes from the unknown, right? Marianne, real quick, Marianne wants to know the name of the book.
Transform Through Travel, Connecting Across Cultures.
Yes, Transform Through Travel, Connecting Across Cultures. It is in here, the headline here. Can people just Google this and find it on Amazon, or where can they find it?
Yeah, I don't think they can. I saw you put it in the comments section there. Yep. So it's not going to be available until the actual launch date on Amazon. So right now, the only way to get a hold of it is through this pre-sale campaign for the next couple days.
Okay, so they click this link, publishizer.com/transform-through-travel, and they can like buy a copy, like an advanced copy kind of thing, and then it gets sent to them in a few days kind of deal.
Well, basically, so when you click that link, all across the right-hand side of the page are the different packages you can explore. If anyone has any issues with getting on the site or making a purchase, just refresh the page or you try using a different device. And just to clarify, so the book isn't, they're not going to get it in a couple days. They'll get it once it is officially launched, which we're looking at summer or fall of this year. So
okay.
So
we're in the summer now, so a few months.
We're looking at late summer into early fall.
So what are the packages that are available that you're doing?
Sure. So we got a couple different ones, right? So we've got actually just recently that's become available as an ebook only, but the rest of them are just like a signed copy and access to weekly book publishing update emails. So I'm keeping my readers informed of like the actual book publishing process, what it's like to write a book. Yeah. And then
if people want to write a book, they can also kind of reach out to you and you kind of mentor them through the process.
You know what? So initially the goal was to basically just keep readers informed, but I'm happy to talk to people about that too, because I've learned a lot about the process of writing a book through writing a book, and happy to share, happy to mentor about that process. And then there are other packages, right, Ben? Like those items, the signed book and the updates, plus access to my exclusive LinkedIn travel community. Okay. And another one offers all that plus like a one-on-one coaching session.
Okay.
And
nice.
then
so people would use those. People would use and you're doing corporate as well.
Speaking and training packages. That's right.
Oh, nice. And so in the coaching sessions that people would do with you, would they be about travel or something else?
So I'm really leaving that open-ended. My thoughts would be in the spirit of the book. It would likely be about travel, but I want to leave that door open if it seeps into cultures or language learning. So my different expertise is I want to help people really in whatever way is going to be most beneficial to them, with the core overarching theme being motivation in travel.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. And how many countries have you been to, Rob?
50.
50 countries. That's a lot.
That's a lot, man. And it's kind of crazy. It's kind of crazy to think about it, just started just zooming and just didn't stop.
Wow. That's incredible. Marianne's got a question. Exclusive LinkedIn travel community. What do you need to get in and invited?
So it's a great question. So right now, it's being offered in this. Let's see. I'm just looking at the package now. So there's the If you go for the global connection, that package, or the universal connection, it's offered within those two packages. And moving forward, there will be other offers as well attached to other services. But right now, that's how we can do it.
Marianne is asking about the logistics of this. She's like, 50 countries. You must have started at age 5.
3.5.
What? 3.5 when you started?
Yeah.
Yeah. How? No, I mean, was it when you were 22 that you started, or?
I'm trying to think back. You know what? The first international experience I ever had was during sleepaway camp, I believe, when we went to Canada. And I'm trying to remember how old I was, but probably would have been somewhere in the teens, like the late teens. So somewhere between.
All right. Well, let's call it 20. Rough numbers here, because it sounds like you didn't really go anywhere until like 22. Like, were you in Canada, right?
22 is where it took off.
22. So 22, and you're what, 34 now?
Not quite, but I will be soon enough. So 33 at the moment. So 11 years.
All right. 11 years. You basically did 50 countries in 11 years. 49 in 11 years.
Mm-hmm.
You're bonkers. You know that, right?
Yeah.
How did you do that? Like for real? Like, if somebody wants to go, just like, you know what? Screw this job thing. I'm going to be a digital nomad. I'm going to work from anywhere. I'm going to just pop my laptop and do it. Visas be damned and tax implications out the window. How does one actually even like do that?
Right. That's a great question too, right? Because a lot of people look at that and they say, like, the same thing you said, you're bonkers. Like, that's nuts. How did you do that? And the answer is going to be, for everyone, it's going to be different, right? Because if you have a job that just like you need to be in the office Monday through Friday there, you're going to be a lot more limited with your time. If you're a digital nomad, you can go place to place. I'll tell you that My story is that I had always found it sort of was like the perfect opportunity once, either it was a contract job that ended and it allowed me this free time to roam, or I relocated from a country, and before picking up my next work opportunity, I had an opportunity to move it. And so the majority of the countries visited, and the reason that there are so many countries on that list is because I would take these opportunities that I found in life of significant chunks of time, having built up the funds to support myself through the travel, and I would just go for it. And when I did, I wouldn't rely on anyone else. Generally, just go by myself, do whatever I wanted to do, have the experiences I wanted to have for the length of time that I wanted to go for, and would not jam pack, right? Because actually we're talking about a long period of time, anywhere from 5 weeks was the shortest of these crazy experiences, 5-week road trip all the way to a 14.5-month trip around Asia. So I would take these big chunks of time that I was allotted, and I would, as we're talking about, like, slowly but surely see many countries in the region. So I did different trips in different areas. So like a US road trip, a South America trip, a Europe trip, an Asia trip, and then most recently a world trip to kind of tie in all the loose knots, things I really wanted to see and hadn't. But before that, it really had focused region by region. And because I figured I was already there, so why not just save time and see something close? I have the time, I have the money, let me just go place by place here and there. So it was really accomplished through a lot of those longer regional trips.
That is incredible. Honestly, that is so incredible. Rob, you've inspired me. I'm going to take the plunge. I'm looking out the door here because I think my wife's going to hear this. She's going to bug out on me. But I'm going to Europe.
My man.
We're gonna do this. I'm probably even gonna book my ticket before it's fully open, just out of faith. You've inspired me, and I can't wait to get on my way to 50 countries. What's a final thought maybe that we should be thinking about just to close this out?
Well, first off, kudos to you again, my friend. You've inspired me just to keep on going and doing what I'm doing, because I know that there's value in this for you. And a final thought, if I had to give one, is just to push forward. And, we often experience difficult and stressful times. I think this past year in COVID really showed us that it was a huge international challenge that we were all dealing with and still are. But we have to remember that there's always a light at the end of the tunnel, and there's always a way to accomplish our dreams. And for me, that method that has been through travel, and for many other people, I think is similarly. But even if it's not, just to acknowledge that there are difficulties and challenges in life that will be real, but that there are ways that we can get around them and accomplish our dreams. Let's do it.
Yeah, I love it. Rob, last question from Marianne. How many languages do you speak?
5, brother.
5 languages. What are they?
So English, Spanish, Japanese, Portuguese, and my Mandarin is basic conversational, but it's there.
Wow, incredible. That's awesome. I got a lot to strive for. Rob, thank you so much. We have today Robert Maisel, author of Transform Through Travel, Connecting Across Cultures. Get the book on pre-sale. The comments have the link. Alan reposted it. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Alan.
And the book will be shipping this summer or fall. Super cool. Rob, I'm super proud of you, man. Just keep doing what you're doing. Thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you, brother Ben, for having me on the show again. Thank you for everyone tuning in. Excited for everybody. And as a last final note, I'm about to hop on Facebook and do my first ever Facebook Live. So if anyone wants to jump in and join the conversation, I'll talk a little bit more about the book. And yeah.
Awesome. Very cool.